Hello, and welcome to the Idaho Outfitters and Guides Association's first podcast. So our hopes with this podcast is to just be another opportunity to get that information out to everybody. We have some members who like reading newsletters. We have some members who occasionally use Facebook. And we've been told that there's a number of members who really like podcasts or stuff on YouTube. And so we are going to try and get you all of the important outfitter and guide information through another medium. So hopefully you like it. And if you don't, you can tell us about it or you can keep it to yourself. So to get us started, I'm Erik Weiseth. I'm the executive director of the Idaho Outfitter and Guides Association. And joining me, we have Jack Hurty. Jack, happy to
Hey
have you here.
everybody. Yeah, happy to be here too. I'm excited about the potential for this podcast. I've always wanted to be a podcaster since I was a little kid.
And Jack, what's your role with IOGA?
Yeah, my official title is Policy and Communications Director. So I help Erik address issues, in the sphere of government or agencies to make sure that outfitters and guides are accounted for. Also help Erik communicate, what we're doing, what we need with our members as well as possible.
For the most part, if it sounds pretty smart, it's probably coming from Jack. And if it sounds pretty crass or mean, it's probably coming from me. So that's how you know. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get into our weekly update on everything IOGA. So Jack, you just got back from D.C., where you were out there with a group of outfitters talking about salmon and steelhead. So why don't you just give us an update on what happened?
Yeah, super fun trip. We flew in last Monday, January 12th, a group of 5 outfitters and guides from across Snake River Basin, plus myself. And our goal really was to just engage with Congress around the state of salmon and steelhead in Idaho, and talk to them about kind of the extinction threat for those fish, talk to them about what's going on the ground. A lot of them don't, they've got a great understanding of what's going on in DC, but they have little to no understanding of what's happening on the ground in Idaho. With the members of Congress from across the West, most notably our delegation from Idaho, we got to meet personally with both Congressmen Simpson and Fulcher and both Senators Crapo and Risch. We had some pretty productive discussions, even with the members that didn't agree with us necessarily on the long-term solution. All of them agreed that salmon and steelhead are worth saving and that our industry is important. And so we were able to find some common ground on some short-term solutions, whether that's addressing predation on the Columbia River with pinnipeds and birds and piscivorous fish, whether that's looking at improved spill regimes to help increase survival for migrating juvenile fish. Hopefully, those conversations will continue and we'll be able to boost survival for Snake River salmon and steelhead. We also took some time to discuss the value of public lands to the outfitting and guiding industry and reaffirmed the opposition of the IOGA to any large-scale sales of public lands. I'd say our members of Congress were fairly receptive to that message. Obviously, Senator Crapo, Senator Risch, and Congressman Simpson were leading the charge last summer for protecting public lands. So we're hopefully that they'll continue that charge and we'll be able to make progress on that issue. I think overall, what I would say about the trip is, while we had fun and while we were able to have these good discussions, there's still a lot of education to be done. Many of our members only have a pretty vague idea of what, is happening in our day-to-day lives or what's happening out on the national forests or the rivers that we operate on. So keeping that conversation and making sure we're in their ear is going to be a priority going forward.
Awesome. And Jack, what outfitters went out to DC with you?
Yeah, so we had Roy Akins, who is a salmon and steelhead outfitter from Riggins, also an IOGA board member. Lauren McCullough, operations manager for Oars, living in Lewiston. Mark Martin, a salmon and steelhead guide on the Clearwater, salmon, longtime Middle Fork guide. Dustin Ahern, owner and operator of Idaho River Adventures, also president of the Middle Fork Outfitters Association, and Colin Hughes of Hughes River Expeditions.
Awesome. Well, sounds like a great trip, and thank you guys for going out and doing that.
All-star team.
Yeah, it's great. So, and hopefully IOGA is going to be back out in DC for Camp Washington with America Outdoors sometime in March. Next on the list of things is the start of the Idaho legislative session. Started last week with the governor's State of the State address, and then going forward, we will have weekly updates on what we see going on at the Capitol related to outfitters and guides. But as far as sort of the summary of the first week, seems like a lot of the focus is going to be on the budget, which means that, maybe not as many things impacting us directly outside of just budget-related stuff. IOGA is not bringing legislation this session, which frees us up to mostly just focus on some of the things other people are doing that, again, we will update you as the session goes along. If you're IOGA hunt member. The hunt allocation group met last week with IDFG leadership to talk about tag allocation. So it was the 4 reps that were nominated by the regional representatives, and they had a meeting along with myself with IDFG leadership, state representatives, state senators, and a few commissioners to discuss issues surrounding allocation. It was a productive meeting and a good start to a much bigger and more complicated discussion to come. We're having a regional hunt representative meeting on February 6th, the day after Lobby Day in Boise. Exact location still to be determined. At that meeting, reps will be updated on what has happened in the meetings with Fish and Game up to this point, and we'll discuss a strategy for moving forward. Those meetings are open to any IOGA hunt member, but participation is limited to those voted in as representatives. Another thing that happened this week was the Idaho Fish and Game Commission meeting. At that meeting, there was public comment, and then there was updates from Fish and Game staff to the commissioners. There was updates on the rules package that has now been sent to the legislature. There was an update on the non-resident draw and the success of that. And there was an update on allocation from Rick Ward. Just give you a few updates, and then we'll actually copy and send out or send links to those presentations in the upcoming newsletter this week. So you'll be able to find them there. But the update on the rules was at public comment. They are contentious. They're specifically around some of the technology pieces and the process from the hack group to the final rule. There were some people who have some concerns, and we feel like there's probably some concerns with the legislature as well. And so that's something we'll be keeping an eye on. And if you watch in the newsletter, we will send out updates on what the rules package is. And also we're going to ask some questions about membership, about their opinions on those things, so we know how to respond to legislators on your behalf when we get asked, which we are, and we will. On the non-resident draw front, they sold through all the tags, which was a big deal. So there was no leftover tags. They didn't even have to go to rounds 4 and 5. So people have until tomorrow to actually claim those tags that they won. And so that's where things will get really interesting, is to see how many of those tags are actually picked up. But overall, it sounds like from a Fish and Game perspective, the non-resident draw was a success. And then on the allocation update, it really was just some numbers. That presentation will be linked in the next newsletter and sent out. If you missed it, you can also go watch the video, and we will send that link in the next newsletter as well. Final thing we're going to talk about this week is the Hells Canyon SEIS. Jack, will you give us an update on what is an incredibly complicated but very important issue?
Right. Yep. So if you've been following along with the Hells Canyon relicensing process, this is a process that started back in 2003. So we've been going on for over 20 years now. The original license for the Hells Canyon dams expired in 2005. So they've been kind of operating on an interim basis. We finally got the supplemental environmental impact statement from the licensing committee, looking at the environmental impact of the Hells Canyon complex and kind of detailing the operations that Idaho Power will take under their new license, most likely once that license is issued. So big thing for outfitters. It looks like the license will likely include a minimum flow requirement of 6,500 cubic feet per second, not the 8,000 that has been asked for by IOGA and partners for navigational safety. 6,500 was the previous requirement, but Idaho Fish and Game or Power and the Army Corps of Engineers and stakeholders in that area had a handshake agreement to keep flows during the summer above 8,000. The reason for that being that jet boats, especially bigger, heavier tour jet boats operated by jet boat outfitters, need that minimum flow to ensure that they can get up and down through the rapids safely. Not only is that an operational issue for these businesses, it's also a safety issue. So even if you're not a jet boat outfitter, if you're out in Hells Canyon, whether you're a private boater or an outfitter, if something happens and you need an emergency rescue, getting a jet boat often is the quickest, safest, and easiest way to get someone from the point of injury to boat ramp where they can then access emergency services. So the bright side is that Idaho Power did not get the 5,000 minimum that they were looking for, except in times of emergencies, which is rare. Unfortunately, we did not get that 8,000, so we're kind of somewhere in the middle. And we'll be continuing our engagement on this. This is, open for comment for the next month or so. We just got this. We're still reviewing all the different provisions and the details of it. There's a lot in there that doesn't have to do with flow mitigation that we'll be interested in, that has to do with anadromous fish spawning. So We'll keep you updated as we dig through those details, and we'll be making comments on this in the process. At the same time, we'll be reaching out to outfitters and guide members, especially those working on or in Hell's Canyon, to engage with this process, to make comments of your own, and make sure that the license and the final decision on this kind of addresses our interest as an industry.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. And to all you outfitters who do operate in Hell's Canyon, this is something you're going to want to comment on, and we will be sending out more information, how to comment, where to comment, and what we think the key points of your comments should be. And expect those probably here in the next week or so into your email box. If you have any questions, feel free to give Jack a call at IOGA. All right, on to upcoming IOGA announcements and events. Lobby Day is coming up February 4th and 5th. So that is what we call Lobby Day and the Wild Game Dinner that we host at the Basque Center. The actual event is on February 5th, starting at the Basque Center with meal prep and those kinds of things. And then there'll also be a group at the Capitol going around and meeting with legislators. Most of it starts the day before on the 4th. In the middle of the day, we'll start doing food prep. And then that evening, we will have a meeting for everyone going up to the Capitol, where we will talk about the issues, go through the handouts, go through what the day looks like, update you on overall some of the processes and what the day is going to feel like. And then that night on the 5th, we will host the Wild Game Dinner. If you haven't signed up to be a volunteer, this is one of the most fun things that IOGA does. It's something I look forward to every single year from when I first started volunteering at it a decade ago or so. It's absolutely one of my favorite events. Whether you're down in the kitchen doing dishes or you're meeting with the governor, all of these things are important. All of it takes kind of a team to come together, and all of it is really fun. So again, if you haven't registered, you can go to the website. You can sign up to participate in whatever way you're more comfortable with. But we really need a lot of people to help make this event happen. So please register, let Hurty know you're coming. Next is the THAW. So the THAW is oftentimes associated with the annual meeting, but when we do it somewhere, when the meeting is somewhere else, we'll host the THAW separately. So the THAW is our big celebration of Idaho outfitting gala dinner that we'll host in Boise on February 26th. If you go to IOGA.org, you can find links to purchase your tickets. You can purchase a table. You can sign up to be a sponsor, or you can purchase a raffle ticket to win a raft. So the raft deal is great. There's only going to be 200 tickets sold, and you will win a raft from Air, a frame from Rogue Gearworks, oars from Sawyer Oars, and a cooler from Canyon Coolers. So it's kind of the full setup that you need for running some of Idaho's greatest rivers. And again, only 200 tickets being sold, so the odds are pretty good. They will sell out, so I would get it on there soon. And as far as booking tables, do that soon as well, because they are starting to go. If you're a lower salmon outfitter, you should have received an invite to the new lower salmon outfitting group. We will be sending out a survey for an upcoming spring meeting, so keep an eye out for that. SNRA outfitters, you should have received a survey for meeting options for the spring. If you didn't get that, let us know here at IOGA. We're going to be setting up that meeting in the very near future. Thanks so much for joining us today. Going forward, expect a similar format. News update like this one, but it'll be followed up with an interview from someone in the guiding industry or with information important to the guiding industry. Our goal is to update you on the recent IOGA happenings, but also to provide an interesting conversation with someone related to the industry. So, if all goes well, you should hopefully find another episode from us next week. In an ideal world, you'll be able to like or subscribe or tell your outfitter and guide friends, all of those things, etc. And if you're not a member of IOGA, please consider joining. It is the support of our members that allow us to continue our ongoing support for the industry. We hope you have a great week and look forward to seeing you soon.